I'll share my screen. Please just confirm you can see my screen.
Yep, we can see it.
All right, so I've already introduced myself, but again, I'm a solution architect and I mainly specialize in AI adaptation and app modernization. I work for EPAM here from UAE, Dubai. So today in our agenda, we will talk a little bit about prompt flow, where you can use it, what is it actually. We'll have a little bit of a demo of a walkthrough of the environment, how to set it up, how to initiate it, how to deploy your experiment or your flow. And then we'll have an open discussion in which we'll see where we can actually utilize this in real life scenario. Let me just confirm my screen is working. Yeah, good. All right. So going back to prompt flow, and I'm not going to bore you with the whole text, but let's just try to understand what is it. So we have seen recently, and I say in the last year more likely, once ChatGPT came out, everything became about Gen AI and large language models, and there is a huge, let's say, requirement to adopt those new technology or adopt those AI into enterprise application, into real lifetime application. And usually you have a separation between the, let's say, the application developers and the AI machine learning developers who will need to provide an endpoint for let's say, the web developer or the mobile developer basically to communicate with the agent they create. And there's a lot of work happening basically to create this agent. One of the main thing, whenever you configure a new agent, you have to give this agent instructions, and this is what we refer to prompt. It's like we need to give instruction to this agent, what you should do, what you should not do, where is your data, how you should reply, which format you should reply. All of that need to be given as an instruction. So Azure Prompt Flow basically help you create this, let's say, scenario. It help you to organize it as a block. So the main core capability is basically execute a flow. So you will create a flow on the fly. You can add your Python code, and I hope in the future they add C# or .NET or Java. I'm not sure if they will, but I hope they will. It's very easy to debug. So whenever you have a flow, you would know exactly which area went wrong, and we'll see that soon. And it's also enable a lot of collaboration. So you can have your prompt engineer working with your Python engineer, working with your data scientist within the same location. Now, of course, it's introduced development life cycles, which you can actually deploy multiple, let's say, flow and expose them as endpoint. But one of the most important, let's say, feature for me is basically the enterprise readiness, because prompt flow live and work on top of Azure infrastructure, and a lot of organization, a lot of enterprise have pre-approved already Azure as a enterprise-ready application or enterprise-ready provider. So basically, you don't have that issue if you're developing for a new enterprise or your existing company, if we need to qualify the provider or not. And this is a major advantage. So with that, before we go to demo, perhaps if anyone have a question. No?
Please feel
Go
free to
ahead.
unmute if anyone
Yeah.
has any questions, or you can put it on the chat as well.
So there's two hands up. I'm not sure if those questions or they're there.
I think they have been up
Okay,
for.
they've been up for a while. All right, cool. So let's start by let's start our demo then. So the first thing we're gonna look at is basically we mentioned Azure AI Studio or Prompt Flow. They actually live within Azure, so they actually do have resources exist within Azure itself. So I went ahead and created a couple of resources because some of them take a little bit of time to deploy. But I'll just walk you through the resources we have here. Do I need to zoom in or it's clear?
I think this is okay. Is anyone
All right,
having any issues looking at this?
All right, great. So one of the first thing we did, if let me just go to my resource group. Yes. So this resource group basically created to host all the resources related in which we'll be using Azure Studio. We've deployed a basic search or AI search, as it's now being called. This service used to be called before Azure Cognitive Search and became now known as Azure AI Search. And this Azure AI Search will work as our vector database. Whenever we need a vector database, out-of-the-box solution provided by Microsoft is the search AI search. I'm hoping that everyone is familiar with what is vector database. Now, we also deployed an ML studio. And so here a machine learning workshop, and this is, you can think of it as your workspace in which you will do all your AI or you will do all your, let's say, experiment. Along with it, they will come on storage. It will come a key vault to host all your secrets. This is pre-configured. So this is, let's say, the Azure part of it. And now we can jump to the AI part of it.
Hassan, sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, sure.
There's a question. Can we change the screen theme to white, to the light one? Because that will
No,
be
yeah,
easier to view.
yeah, true. How did we used to do that? I forgot, to be honest.
It's yeah, it's in the
It's
settings
somewhere
section.
here.
Settings, and on the left side, the appearance and startup views. No,
Settings. Oh,
settings.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm just gonna go to light.
light or blue, everything.
Yeah. So I hope it's clearer now.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry for that. The default mode is just dark. So
No worries.
just walk you through the resources we have here. We have a search service and other AI search. We have an ML workshop. Once you deploy an ML workshop, it will automatically spin application insight to monitor your application behavior and log all the errors. It will also deploy analytic workspace, again, for the same purpose, for different type of analytic, not related to error. A storage account for basic storing all type of, let's say, queues, blob, document, and it's actually pre-configured. Key vault for keeping your secrets, like any connection string, any password, uh, hidden. And again, failure, which is just a smart detector alert. So this is the service that get deployed within Azure, in which once we access the machine learning studio, we'll be utilizing all of those. So if I click on launch the machine learning studio, here we're inside our workshop. So we're inside the ML demo. And this is, let's say, our AI studio. This is where we actually conduct a lot of our work. Now, Microsoft have multiple AI studio. So if I clicked on Azure AI Studio, this is the main, think of this as like the homepage of AIs overall. So from here, you will be able to access OpenAI Studio. You'll be able to access Machine Learning Studio, which is the flow that we just seen earlier, or the screen we've seen before. You have Language Studio for basic text generation, text manipulation, translation, all of those. Speech when it comes to text to speech or speech to text, and even, let's say, I believe they introduced different voices, different tone, different languages here. Vision, translator, document, and content safety. Now, content safety is quite important, especially when you work with enterprise, to be able to add. One thing, they all work together natively. They all support each other. So now we go back to our ML Studio, and our prompt flow basically live here. So this is our prompt flow. This is where we create the flow, and we'll be able to see and expose it as an endpoint. Now, before we start and start working on the prompt flow, we need to, let's say, set up our environment. So one of the main things you need to set up, which is basically computing instance. So this is, we need some horsepower, we need some processing, or in a more technical terminology, you need a VM basically to run your application. So you will come here and you will create a new VM, you will configure it. You can estimate basically how much is your, let's say, your resources, how much of GPU or CPU is required. And basically from here, you can configure it. You can go with a GPU or a CPU type of virtual machine or computing instance. And Microsoft has like hundreds of them here available. Just be careful because some of them are quite expensive. But once you configure it, there's one thing you need to, let's say, configure while you're doing it. Basically, to save you money, you always need to configure the shutdown time. So whenever you configure it, I believe it should be visible somewhere here. Diagnosis, where is it? Somewhere it should be here. Created processing memory. It's not in the jobs. But anyway, during your configuration, or we can try to set up a new one, you will be asked, when do you want this here? So I've scheduled it basically to shut down every day at 8 p.m. And you don't want your machine to be running at night without you using it. And this is basically just a cost that you're recurring without utilizing the VM. So you can schedule the machine to shut down after 1 hour if it's not being active, and you can schedule when exactly is to shut down automatically, and you can specify which date. In case of the weekend or weekdays you have heavy work, you can keep this you can keep it open. So this is now our computing power. Now we can go to data, and here where basically, let's say you have your data set, you want to upload documents, or you want to create let's say files, or there is some data you need to be available in this platform. So you can go ahead and create a new data, give it a name, data test, let's say. I'm not going to create it, but you have multiple options. It's basically I want to upload a local file to work with, or from web or from Azure storage. But you can actually change it to a different format. I have from an open data source data set, from an SQL database. So you have the ability to customize how do you want to, what do you call it, import this data to this workshop so we can actually do some work on it. Now let's go to the interesting part, which is prompt flow. Now, as you can see here, whenever we access prompt flow, we have 4 or 5 tabs here. You have flow, runs, connection, runtime, and vector database. And we will discuss those in details before we start creating our flows. Because your flows basically need those services to work and live on. So if I click create, you have here a couple of examples, or you can start from blank completely. But those let's say flows require. So here I'm just going to create a new one, and let's call it flow demo. It will take a second or so to develop, so we can get back to it while it's working. So those flows you will create require some resources. So one of the first thing, it will require the runtime. Where should they run? It will require some, sorry, it's creating, so we're not able to see anything. Sorry, so here's the runtime. Yeah. It requires some runtime. Where should this prompt flow run? So let's say we earlier created a computing instance, and let's say you can create multiple of them. So you can import most of them, for example, to this prompt flow. Meaning here, okay, we're given a permission to prompt flow to access those compute instances. Not only a permission, but actually we're qualifying those VMs. I'll be using them for prompt flow. Connection is one of the most important, let's say, tabs here. And this is where you connect to third-party services to be able to complete a certain flow. So just look at an example. We have Azure Content Safety, which we talked about earlier. This is about making sure your chatbot or your agent is, for example, not exposing, not cursing, not exposing secret information, not exposing, not answering or replying to a specific type of question. You have an Azure OpenAI services, and this is Azure implementation or Azure endpoint to access OpenAI models, cognitive search, and other services. So I went ahead and configured two of them, but I just would like to walk you through some of them. So for example, when you're creating cognitive search, we give it a name, search 2, for example. It's a cognitive search. It will require your API key and API base, and those will go back to Azure. And this is our cognitive search. And basically, you can get your keys from directly from the configuration under keys, and your base URL will be the main, let's say, public URL. And this is where the machine learning studio will be able to access the cognitive search. Same goes for OpenAI. I pre-configured it already. I've added my organization. I added my keys. Of course, they're not visible right now, but you click on OpenAI, it will ask you to give it this, let's say, connection or name. It's an OpenAI connection, and then we'll ask you for your key and organization. Now, for keys, if you went to OpenAI, if you have an account there, basically just go to API keys, generate a new account, and make sure you give it all permission. Now, a lot of us want to use Azure OpenAI service. However, it's not accessible, or it's not publicly accessible yet, and you may or you might not get access to it. So alternatively, you can use direct API from OpenAI's. Create an account and go to your keys, give it all permission. So let's say this too. Once you create it, make sure you copy the code or you copy the key because you will not be able to see it again. And we're just going to delete this one for now. All right. Any questions so far?
I
Ahmed,
think
if you can
we
see the
have
chat.
one question in the chat. So
Yeah.
when you were showing the compute section where you would select a new VM, someone asked, Ramesh has asked, how do we estimate the compute that we require for the VM?
Yeah, actually, that's a very difficult question. So you first start by Microsoft always recommend you start by, let's say, the smallest VM you can try with. You have some recommendation here, but you can try. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Are we going for a GPU or CPU? If we're more into memory and if more into we need, let's say, calculation power, then you might actually go for CPU. But once we go to image creation, image manipulation, neural network implementation, let's say in that scenario, you will go for a GPU because the graphical processing is stronger or more suitable. Now here we have a lot of instances. How to configure or how to select which one is more, let's say, suitable for you. So for example, if you look, some of them are general purpose, some of them are memory optimized. And in terms of core, it's exactly the same. So if you're running, for example, in our scenario, in memory, so let's say you're using semantic kernel memory and basically your chat or your agent need a memory to remember the conversation. You have two ways to do that. You can have it in memory immediately, or you can have it in a vector database or any third-party storage. So it depends on your configuration, you might be able to select. But from the beginning, it's quite difficult because you'll not be able to estimate it basically based on the number of conversation, for example. You'll have to figure out how many steps in your flow. We'll see that a little bit in the design here. And I know I didn't give you like a clear answer because it's not that easy. We actually spend hours trying to estimate the right VM and the cost. So it takes a lot of time and it depends on what exactly you'll be doing with the VM.
So first thing, of course, is to determine if it should be a CPU one or a GPU one based on your use
Correct.
case, correct? And then you can see maybe based on your budget, the cost that you're costing that, and the
you're
size of the
not,
data set and stuff, right?
yes, and there is another complete different option here, which you can run this whole thing serverless. and that will be charged based on runtime, and Microsoft will take care of, let's say, your scale up and scale out kind of thing. You can also deploy a cluster of computing, so it's not necessarily a single instance. You can work with Kubernetes as well.
Yep. Perfect. I think. Thank you so much, Hassan. I think that answers the question.
Okay. So now we have our connections in place. We have two connections, OpenAI and Cognitive Search, and it's for some reason it's always slow to bring them up. I'm just going to go to runtime. We have our computing in place, and you can actually natively add a vector database here. Now, unfortunately, this is only work with OpenAI, Azure OpenAI configuration. I hope they change that in the future. But the idea here is like you want to upload some documents or you want to connect to a specific data set. So you'll say this one, you can say, those are my documents. And it will ask you, you want to create a vector database, where is it going to be? And you can see it automatically picked it up from our connection. So it's our connection. The next step is will be basically to have your Azure OpenAI connection, and say here by default they work with OpenAI resources. Now this is current limitation. I hope they overcome that soon, but that doesn't stop you because you can do this with your own code inside the flow. And now let's get into the flow, the interesting part. So I have here a flow called chat with Wikipedia. So we'll enable the user basically to communicate, have a chat with Wikipedia pages. And here we're not using any type of, let's say, database because we're interacting live with Wikipedia itself. Now, before we get into this tab, we can see we have option to add multiple, let's say, tools. Now, the first one will be an LLM. Let's going to expose this model. So here we'll ask you what's the model, and you can just give it a name, and then from there the configuration, which is something we have here already. Yes, this is this is an LLM model. You can add prompt screen. You can add your own custom Python code, or you can add more tools. Basically, for example, if you wanna connect to an embedding databases, and remember earlier we said vector database, we were not able to add it, but you can add it with your own logic here. You can connect it with GPT-4 Turbo Vision, and this is where your model will be able to actually see something and interact with an image, not only with the text. So you have multiple connection, and of course you have the whole freedom to create your own logic. So what do we have here? We have an input. The input basically, we have the chat history that we keep updating with the input, and you have the question, which is the latest, let's say, input from the end user. You can add still multiple, and as an output, we expect here an answer, and this answer get added again to the chat history because your bot, we want the bot to be fully aware of like what's the input, what's the output, like the natural conversation. And now we go to the first block we're using, and which is we call it extract query from question. So basically, this is an NLM, let's say, block, and it can ask you what is the connection. And here we're saying OpenAI, and you can see this is the connection we already pre-configured in the previous tab. So we say we're going to use this OpenAI. Perhaps you have multiple connection. You want one to work with OpenAI. You want one to work with your own, let's say, LLM model. You want another one to work with your a fine-tune model. So you can add most of them, all of them, and basically configure which part of the flow work with which LLM model. So once I select OpenAI, it will automatically pull the information and ask me which LLM model from OpenAI you will be talking to. I'll say I'm talking to 4. You can define the temperature, the maximum number of token, and how do you want the response to be. Now, once I created this, you can go more advanced by add functional calling if you have. So you can actually, I'm not sure if you're aware of functional calling, but it's a way for, let's say, the LLM model to execute specific function within your flow. So let's say we have an API called let's get weather data or get stock, let's say value, and you have that code written in Python or C# somewhere, and you want this LLM model to execute that code. So you will hook it up through function APIs or function calling, sorry. And now we get into our prompt, and here we're saying your AI assistant, look at the chat and provide an answer. You give the what do you call it, the LM model an example. This was the question, this was the answer, how it worked. And then here we're getting from the environment, the chat history and the question. So items is like the item that being passed to this flow. So this whole thing, the input get passed here. And then we have the human question. All right. So this is basically a first step we did. Is that clear so far? Okay. So one advantage here is like, okay, once you create a block, you'll be able to execute it immediately to know if your connection is working, if your logic is working, or if your Python code is working. Basically, click the run button here. It will run this specific block only. So it's gonna run this block we have only. In reality, it doesn't work with this level of slow. It works way faster once we compile it and deploy it. So, so we can see here, basically our block is completed. It's worked perfectly. So now we know this part is working. The second block we have is a Python code, and basically this code is dedicated to get the URL of the Wikipedia page. We have a second Python code here. So if you can go with the flow here, we're getting the URL. Here we get the result from URL, which is basically we're passing the whole page here. We're getting the information about the page itself, and then we're processing it, and we're at the end we're adding it to sorry, an LLM model, and you can see here we're giving the context, and the context basically came from here. So we have the search result, we're exposing it as an output, and then it get passed to this second model, and we're using it as a context of like, okay, so that the chatbot will be aware of the data we want to pass to him. And this is, for example, if you're using vector database, you can pull this information from your own data. Let's say the user is asking about a product, you can pull through a vector database, do some search, get the product, and add it here as a context. Now you see here where I'm using 3.5 turbo, and earlier here we used GPT-4. So you have flexibility within the same flow itself to be using multiple LLM models. Sorry, which is something a little bit difficult if you're doing yourself by writing a code. Now, where will this come in handy? You want, for example, your initial flow to be using a generic LLM model, but you want the output to be in a certain format, and here you can add your own fine-tuned model, and we should be like, okay, the original model is, let's say, a cheap model, GPT 3.5, 16 or something, or turbo, and you want the more expensive model is the one who provide the answer in a specific format, the fine-tuned one to be at the end. Now we can save this flow. It's already been saved, but you can see here how we're just building a flow. First do this, second do that, third do that. And now we can chat with it. I've already had a chat with it. Ask you what is GPT, went to Wikipedia, get the information, and then here we're asking what's the difference between this model and the previous neural network. And here when it's come the context awareness, the chat history is useful because what we mean by this. If you opened a new chat and you just ask immediately, what's the difference between this? We have no context, we're not aware, but we're having a conversation. So this is when we ask what's the difference between this. the LM model can easily understand we're talking about ChatGPT, and then can from there provide you with different answer, and then it will give you the reference. And it's like, let's just ask question here. When is Microsoft? I will say AI Studio. I hope they have a Wikipedia page for that. And now, if I minimize this, you see, you'll be able to see the flow working. So right now it's running the first part. Once it's succeeded, it will go to the next one and keep going till we get the result. All right, so they all ran. So yeah, I didn't find this in Wikipedia. So let's just see what we have in Wikipedia homepage. Okay, I don't want that. Anyone can provide me with any suggestion what to search for? What is NASA say?
Search for Microsoft itself.
Is no, it's spelling mistake, but we'll handle it.
That's one of the use case. Let's see
Yeah.
if it handles it.
So it's executing, it's in the flow. All right, and here we have our reply. Microsoft is a corporation, blah 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 blah, and this is the URL. And the good thing here is giving you the number of tokens has been used and the time it's been spent. Now, if I go to my OpenAI and basically refresh my keys, you see this key is what I added when I'm using right now in this flow. And you see the last time it's being used is today, and actually last time being used just a second ago. So you can see how we're actually calling OpenAI and you consuming their we're consuming their GPT-4 and GPT 3.5 models. Now we're happy with our experiment. We're happy with our flow. We managed to create, edit, update it, do whatever we want to do. And now we want to basically deploy this. We want to add it as an endpoint. So we have the option to deploy it now. And let's say we're going to call it Azure Middle East Community Front Flow API. It's all lowercase. Azure Middle East Community. And yeah, so where are we going to deploy that? Again, we're deploying to a different virtual machine. And this is where the model is already being configured, trained. So now we're running it as a debug mode, let's say. Now it will be compiled and will run on the specific machine. I only want one instance for now. And I'm not going to worry about authentication for now. I'll just create the endpoint. Where you'll be able to see that, you go to your endpoints. So give it a minute, it should show up here. Let's go. Yeah, so this is our endpoint right now, it's being deployed. And you can see it's actually creating the endpoint, it's not available yet.
While it's being created, do we have any questions from anyone?
Yeah, I have one question here. In the last prompt flow, like it's always a sequentially the blocks will execute, or like is there any other orchestrations we can able to add, like a parallel or something? I mean, I never seen this before, the designer, that's why I asked.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, this one,
So
right
your
side graph. Yeah.
yeah. So your input basically here we have two, let's say, uh, two path it will take, or you can have multiple paths it will take, but usually it will run in sequence. So like first do this, second do that. However, you can add some condition in your sequence basically to skip it. If like you can add your own custom logic, for example, to skip it if there's something, if a condition is met or not met.
Okay. One block to another block while passing the data, is there anything I mean, of course, like I'm a C# programmer, so normally the function will returns the return parameter and input is like a signature of method or something. So like that here, is there anything we need to take care like while one block of data is moving to the next one, or like all are independently it will work?
No, you will take care of it, and it worked natively out of the, let's say, out of the box. But basically here you can see in every block you have what was the input, what was the output,
I
and you
see.
can actually be able to trace it. So from here you will see the output, what was. So this whole LLM model, this whole one, the one we created at the beginning, its job was basically to figure out what is the context we're talking about. So when I spelled Microsoft wrong here in the chat, where's the chat? When I said what is yeah, what is Microsoft here, the whole this model was its job basically to get the context. What is this person talking about? And you can see here it actually the output was Microsoft company information. This is what the output of it. So it didn't care about all of this. It was job. It was only to get this part of information. This piece of code, the output of it. So the output here is basically okay. Person is talking about Microsoft. This block identified we're talking about Microsoft. This one needed to create the URLs. So here it generated two URLs, which the thing is present this Microsoft. So it create Wikipedia search Microsoft and search Copilot. Now we jump and you can see what was the input here. The input came from the query question output. So extract query from question output. This is the output of this one. And you can see
Yes.
here we're defining it. Now the question is the input. The question history is coming from the first output input parameters. So each one passed to the one after it.
Okay. So it's slowly enriching the each block, the information, and then appending all the data and sending the last block.
Correct. And here this one is generating the URLs, output again, getting it actually went and took the whole, it's basically for this URL, it went and took the whole, let's say, Wikipedia page, get it as content. For the second one, did the same thing. And their input was the two URLs that came from the previous experiment or the previous block. And you can see, so right now here we actually have all the context and it's gonna have it as output as a context. And again, send it to the final one. And the final one basically getting the input, the context here. You can see here we're defining it as a parameter. The context, we said the process search result output as a string. This is we define it as a context. The chat history is coming from the inputs outputs. The question coming from the inputs outputs we define first. So you see here you have those you have this panel basically in which you configure what is the input, and then from here when you write in your code you'll be able to refer to those one.
Okay.
Is it clear? Is
Yeah.
it clear now?
Yeah, it's very clear, Hassan. Thank you.
Mm.
Thanks for the explanation.
Yeah. Now let's go to our endpoint. Let's hope this one. Yes, so now it's available. We have an endpoint. Where is the URL? Yes. So here you have your Swagger URL, and you have your REST API endpoint that you can easily pass it. It's still actually working, but you can still pass this, let's say, URL to your development team. Of course, you can add authentication to it. You can view your logs and everything, but it's still deploying so it's not completed yet, but you have here authentication is keys, and for example, now you want to use token based or you want to use keys based, up to you. And you have your Swagger to pass it to your team, and you have your endpoint, and then you'll be able to view the log. So you can see here we have the separation between let's say prompt engineer and the development team. So your developer or you or your team doesn't need to have all this logic inside their code. You don't want to have all this logic inside, let's say, your web or mobile application to go and do all of this. It's an endpoint available. They can easily just call it through an API, and even in the future, you'll be able, for example, to update the traffic from here. So endpoint is not finished yet, but you'll be able to, what do you call it, update the traffic from here. So you can split the traffic 50-60. You can reroute the traffic completely to a different endpoint. So your development team is not, let's say, heavily involved in creation of the agent. They actually engage in developing their own logic, how to use it, the interfaces, the authentication, whatever. And you have this separation of creating this flow or this agent, and it's live in a different environment with different computing instance. You know exactly how much it costs. You can run experiments using different models, different flows. So it's up to you from here. I hope this finish, because it will take a little bit of time. No, it's not yet provisioned. But once it's provisioned, you'll be able to see it here as an endpoint, and it's live, and you'll be able to basically just pass it to your team.
While this is being provisioned again, we have one question from Hema. Could you please provide labs link for this session? Do we have any labs that the audience can use to create something by themselves?
Yeah, sure. So again, this is run on top of Azure itself. So if you created an Azure subscription, Azure by default will give you around, I think, $200 the last time I checked, free to experiment with, to play around with. So if you created your Azure subscription, you'll be able to jump to Azure Machine Learning Studio. Just know that some of those services are not available with the free subscription. So I'm not sure, because this get updated quite often. But
are there any tutorials or labs that the audience can use to create something?
yeah, no, unfortunately, no. It has to be within. There is no lab. There's a lot of tutorials. If you went to learn.microsoft.com, there's a lot of tutorials there.
Probably we can share that one. No problem.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you know how to get access to the Azure AI website? Do we need to pay to create our new project on that website? Yeah.
Which website? Which one? Sorry.
Huh?
Which one?
Sorry. Yeah, I want to ask. Can we create our own project on the Azure AI website? Is creating the project free of charge, or you need to charge some service fees if we want to meet some kind of condition when we are creating our own project?
No. So basically, this project, sorry, this whole project. Let me go to the home space. So this is AML demo project. This lives within Azure itself. So this Azure Machine Learning Studio, which is ml.azure.com. Think of this whole thing as a service of Microsoft Azure, because if you went to Azure itself, you see this whole logic we were looking at there is just one service here. So it's Azure Machine Learning Workshop. Alternatively, if you went to Azure ai.azure.com, here you have multiple studio. So if you have this machine learning studio, which we just looked at, but one of their newest studio is this AI.azure.self, and you can start here by building. You will create a new project, and again, this will create all the new resources in Azure itself. So it's always connected to Azure. It has to go back. What do you call it? It has to go back to Azure to provide, because this is where the actual hardware lives. So it will go back to Azure and create those resources there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Do you charge any fees when we are going to our project on the website?
Yes, Microsoft do charge. Some of those services are chargeable. Even if you're not using the machine. For example, the compute service, it will be chargeable. The cognitive search, this service is chargeable. Now, of course, a lot of those services you have a free tier, but some of them are quite chargeable there.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Can you send the link of that website to our email address or to the chat box?
Yeah, I'll send this one here in the chat.
Oh.
The AI Studio. You'll be able from there to navigate. Where is it? Yeah, to navigate to any of the AI studios Microsoft provide.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we have one more question from John. Do you use something like APIM to advertise those APIs? Additionally, in regards to auth, isn't it possible to use RBAC other than keys?
For the endpoint you exposed?
Yes.
Yeah,
John, if you want, if there's any thing, if I phrase it wrong, you can correct me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it is the endpoint. So we create that endpoint, and then that endpoint gets advertised, I guess, publicly if you're using Flow without any, I guess, private endpoint or something like that. So then it's like, if you exposing this to internal customers, let's say in your company, will you use APIM to do that?
So no, you will be able to use the token-based authentication, and then from there you need to configure it with your Active Directory or perhaps the API gateway. So you can expose this through an API gateway in which you add your let's say the Azure B2C or Entra, as they call it now, to the API gateway to authenticate the user before accessing. But from here, you only limit to those two options.
Okay.
Yeah, but you don't have to expose the API directly from here. You can put it in a private network and then from API gateway access to it. Yeah.
But it will be API gateway or APIM? Given that API gateway,
API management.
API management, yeah,
yeah. Which is the API gateway from Microsoft Azure. Yeah, same thing.
Yep. Cool.
Great.
Yep, perfect. Thanks.
Great.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, Asan, you said like here multiple languages it will support, so Python and C# and all that thing. So as per your experience, like which language is easy to write and more capable to write? Because
no, I'm saying it currently support Python. I was hoping they will support multiple language in the future here, but as of the moment, out of the box, they're only supporting Python, which I know it's a little bit slow. But out of the box right now, they're supporting Python. Hope in the future they might support C++ or C# or .NET or Java or Node perhaps. But as of now, it is only support Python.
Okay. I mean, it really for your time permission is how to add this block here. Like, is it possible to show?
Sorry.
In your graph, like how to add that block.
Okay. So this is the new flow we created earlier when we just start. So if I just clicked on adding Python, it will add a Python, and let's say here, say this code, and this is where now I start adding. So you're not adding directly here, I'm adding my code, but then it's like, okay, no, it should come before, and I'm here, I'm identifying the logic is like, oh no, my code should come before this, or you can just move it up here from this direction. So it's like, okay, do this, then do this, or no, execute the code before anything. So now I take, what do you call it? I take the LLM model at the bottom. So drag and drop and change basically the flow.
Okay, got it. Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
So Hassan, there we have one more question. Does Azure AI cover all AI functionalities which we can develop or deploy from Azure?
But sorry, who's asking that? Because what do you mean by all functionalities?
I think they are looking at the AI Studio homepage which you showed. Can you go to that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is from here. So Hema, you can reach out to all the AI services from here. Correct, Hassan?
Yes. So from here, it's the same account, same subscription as Azure. This is important to know because this is all you're billing. Then it comes to the same subscription. And then you'll be able to access to any of those. So let's say we just go to Speech Studio, and this is I'm still the same user, still the same subscription, and from here I can deploy any of those model, basically custom speech or speech translation, and I can easily export it later on as an API, as an endpoint as well. It's a similar experience. It's just a little bit different UI, different customization. But all of them at the end go to Azure AI. So if you look, Azure AI again, and we have on our speech, it's part of Azure AI and the Azure AI umbrella. And all of them behind the scene rely on Azure itself. So the subscription, the cost, and everything will be managed there.
Great.
Okay, fine. So yes,
I'll post this link in the chat. It's try to Azure AI services for free, so perhaps people can experiment.
yes, that's fine. So just I want to know if I want to start our career in the AI, artificial intelligence. So is it sufficient if you are familiar with the Azure AI? So it will cover all the required functionalities and all.
So that's okay. So and when it comes to, let's say, AI career, you have, from my experience, and again I could be wrong or right, you have two paths. So you have the AI scientist. This is where they actually go and create a new model and create the algorithms. And you have the AI, let's say, engineers or architect, and this is where we use those existing models to develop more smarter application. So the output of the engineering part is not really an AI model, but a human-based use application that uses AI, and the AI scientists they're developing the models itself. This is when they do all the math and everything. Now, if you look into the path of, let's say, AI developer, AI engineers, Azure have more than enough for you to develop any type of, let's say, smart application you do, from large language models to computer vision to speech to deploying on Jupyter Notebook, for example, to write your own, let's say, deep neural network. All of that is available, and you can just pick it up from the shelf, add it to your application, and within minutes you'll be able to provide a smarter feature. For example, search. You don't need to worry, for example, write the logic for spelling mistake. You need to don't worry about the context. You don't even need to worry about the search or to complete or suggestion. All of those, let's say, AI feature provided out of the box. You can embed it within your application. So Azure have more than enough for you to build smart application. Now, if you look as an AI scientist, Azure can provide you with enough computing power and storage to run your experiment. So some experiments take days, to complete, and you can run those easily on top of Azure, let's say hardware. So for both career or for both paths, you have enough resources, but it's up to you to explore which path, because you need to know in which direction you're moving. Yeah. I hope that provides you some context. Yeah.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much for the support.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, one question. In your video, you showed us that you can use two different kind of processor to meet the AI's functions. One processor is called CPU, and another one is GPU. So my question is, what's the difference between these two processors, and which processor we should choose to meet the to mimic the specific functionality?
Yeah, so I've used CPU in this model. So if I went back to my chat model, you'll see here is the runtime, is the computer runtime here. Is the one I specified earlier. So this is the instance in which I'm running this. I personally believe CPU is more than capable when it comes to a lot of, let's say, mathematic stuff, but when it comes to tensor, more related work, you will need GPU. So if you have TensorFlow or PyTorch or any of those, what do you call it, tensor AI models, you will need GPUs. In some scenarios, they have tensor processing unit, TPUs. So for example, Google have a TPU, which is completely different to provide the tensor processing. Microsoft have their own. I don't know if it's publicly available yet or not yet, but it's more into the tensor. So it mainly depends on your logic. If you're doing normal search and auto-correction, auto-complete, some simple stuff like that, CPU is more than enough. GPU, if you're manipulating a lot of image, you're doing some image manipulation, you're doing neural network, deep network, for example, or deep neural network learning machine models, you will need GPU. If you go in with a lot of tensors, you might need TPU. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So it's like CPU is for the just for more general processing, and CPU is for the complex functions, like creating the mobile modeling and making images, right?
That's like a very fair, let's say, assumption to say. CPU more into the general part and more into the memory part.
Okay.
GPU will be more into also its memory is intensive, but more into more complex scenario.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much, Hassan. Do we have anyone, any other questions? You can put it on chat, or you can unmute yourself and then ask him. I guess not. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Please make sure you leave your feedback, like on how you found the session today, and what you expect in future sessions. We can tailor some specific sessions for you as per your request. And yeah, and we will hopefully see you next week again with a deeper dive into this, where we will go into our AG, more deep dive into Azure AI services and prompt flow. So stay tuned. Keep checking our Azure Middle East group on LinkedIn or Meetup. So I'll just put the links on the chat. So in case you are not a part of the group or Meetup, you can you can sign up so that you can stay tuned. Rest, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us on LinkedIn, or you can just Hassan, you can, if you want to put your email.
Yeah, sure. I prefer LinkedIn, to be honest.
Or LinkedIn, yeah.
Yeah, like the emails went to spam all the time, and then you barely read anything there. So I'll just perhaps add my LinkedIn here. More than happy to connect and have more one-on-one conversation and learn from you, and we share experience. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hassan, for the very informative session, and looking forward to see you guys in future sessions.
Thank you very much, guys, and
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Ahmad, for your time and efforts. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was
Have a good day.
Very informative.
Have a nice weekend, everyone. Yeah.
John, have a good weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.